You may have, in multiple cases, heard me sing the praises of BeamNG being a very, very particularly technical game and just having a bar none driving experience that really needs to be driven to be fully experienced. And you may have also heard me sing the praises of automation. Not only a game that you can play with, but also export said cars to BeamNG. And if done right, these cars can be a great little experience to further your pleasure of the vehicle that you just made. It's a win-win. Absolutely fantastic. Nothing bad here. Everything is all good, right? Well, no, not really. See, automation was meant to make road cars and your normal mundane sort of vehicles. It's a tycoon game. But they didn't want to put limitations on you to try to make your own things like race cars, and I love that. Oh, but that's where the game starts to fall apart because it wasn't designed for that. Let me run you through this example that I've put together for you. This is a little, kind of radical R1-esque sort of vehicle I've put together. It's made out of your normal sort of stuff like carbon fiber. It's got a space frame and some normal suspension. The engine's a little 4-cylinder that's like absolutely cranked up to the max to make about 500 horsepower. This is no slouch. Grippy as hell tires. Now, the devs have told me that the semi-slicks are kind of actually around the level of slicks when they get over to BeamNG. So we're getting a lot of traction and not a lot of weight. Add onto that a lot of downforce. This vehicle is quite brutal. Do you want to know what the most brutal thing is? Well, that would be the jiggliness of this race car. Way too much traction, very light vehicle. This thing is absolutely a jiggle fest. It gets just as bad when you go to brake. Now, I know I've gone into slow motion to show this up, but really, any sort of flex like this, not good. Let me show you what it's like at normal speed. A little bit of jiggle here and there, and it's not great for the vehicle, and then the back wobble like that makes it really hard to drive, and I experienced a lot of this during the 24 hours of Le Mans that we did previously with Ruben and Mouye. Like, it rears its head very often, and especially if we try to go into, okay, well, we don't have a first-person camera. Got relative camera, let's try putting it into place, and now you're gonna see just how jiggly this bad boy can get. So, got a little bit of jiggle here, okay, oh, that's not helped by the jiggliness of it. And then if we try to brake, it really shudders, and that starts to become a big problem if you're trying to push your cars to the absolute maximum. So that's what we're going to try to attempt to deal with today. And I'm going to make a general mod that hopefully anyone should be able to use. For me to show what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to bring out the Ibishu Miramar, which is something I have a little bit of experience with. If we go into our debug mode, I want to show you something which I noticed about their vehicles, is even they have found that there's a bit of a jiggly nature, but they did a little bit of a, I'm going to call this a dirty trick to make this work. If we open up the main body for the Miramar and scroll down a little bit, you'll see that we got these things called slide nose and rails. Now, for those of you that have been around here for long enough, you'll know that that's a little bit unusual because slide nodes and rails are usually used for things like steering. But the one other property that they have is they are incredibly rigid. Very, very rigid. So what they'll do, instead of just having your normal beams and nodes that you would normally have in a vehicle, they've actually made slide nodes that go all the way across, and that means that anything that's attached to said slide node will not only just try to move itself up and down, but it'll also try to move this, making this a superstructure. So they also had problems with flex, and they fixed it by doing something which is abnormal. So how am I to apply this to this vehicle? Well, that also comes down to how this thing is made. Let's quickly turn off all visibility of mesh, and would you look at that? Whoa! The floor is nearly 100% flat. Isn't that fantastic? And one of the weakest points is this overhang part here. Now, it does have beams in between, so it's not as if there's actually no structure here. It is actually got some rigidification in here. But what I'm planning, or what I am proposing I'm going to do today, is make a slide node, or a rail that goes all the way down, and make everything that's in there also a slide node. So if it ever tries to flex, it's going to try to bend a superstructure, which is these rails along. I'm also going to make two different versions. For those of you that are just going to do the default sort of stuff, I'm going to connect it here all the way to the back onto here. Yeah, there we go, got the mouse in place. But then I'm going to make another version for those of you that know how to move nodes. I'll go over that a little bit, but mostly I'll link you to a video that'll explain it a little bit better. Because I'm also going to try to have one that has these nodes move down, so then we have even more rigidity. And then on the front as well, because the front lifts up a little bit, but if we bring that down, everything can be straight. So let's start off by grabbing our mod, which is called the Ragamuffin 500. And then in there, we're gonna grab the main J-beam out of here. Then we're gonna have a look at our predominantly normal nodes. That being nodes 13, 17, and 21. 13 has a height of 0.537. 17, which has a node height of 0.37, and 21, which has a node height of 0.37. Then 25 also has 537, but then we lose that by about 29, which by that point is 593. So great. Good. Let's grab something very simple so we have some referenced code to work from. And in here we can get rid of the flex body stuff. We don't need this at all. We're going to call this Camso Rigidification 1. Name this Rigidification Simple. Slot type is going to be a little bit tricky here. A slot type is anything that's in here, and one of the things that we have is this chassis. Very simple, this slot just goes right in here, and it's a chassis mesh. Now, we don't always use that, because if we come down to where the chassis mesh slot is, there's nothing in the flex bodies. And if we go in and turn our body back on, and have a bit of a fly on the inside, we'll see that there is no chassis. But not everybody is willing to do the work to get rid of the chassis and then replace it with something else. So I don't want to use that one, but that one would have been perfect. Because in automation, if you don't make the chassis invisible, there'll actually be a line in here about what sort of flex body should be in here. So if we have a look at Camso Core, we have a very simple one. It's just called Camso Mod. So basic. Stick that in here as slot type, and now we have ourselves a bit of a playground where we can do anything we want. So let's go into the Miramar. We got our slides and rails. Let's go ahead and plop you in. But this is a simplified one. We're only going to use 2 rails. The reason being is there is really only 2 that are straight down, but we're going to have a different version that also does the edges, but these edges are not 100% flush along here. As you can see, it kind of bows up on the edges, but these should always be fairly flat. And if this doesn't work for you, that's because these don't line up flat. So we get rid of these and get rid of these. This is going to be ridge left and ridge R. Move these to here. Then these nodes in the rails need to be changed because these are what the rails will be connected in between. And we're not going to start here. We're going to go all the way to the front area. So on the left side, we have A26, A26, and A25 for the other rail. Then those come all the way down here to A6 and A5. Now, the nodes that attach to this, the things are going to get a little bit messy maybe, because no longer at the back, coming down to the front, we're going to start to apply these. A22 and 18, A22, Control D on this, then A18. Moving further down, we have 14 and 10. 14, duplicate again, and 10. Now, we have the right side, which is going to start with node 21 and 17. 21 and 17. Then 13 and 9. And hey presto, we now have all of these nodes connected to their appropriate linking thingies. Rails. It's literally written right there, and my brain failed me. Now, out of nowhere, additional modification is available, and rigidification simple. Let's do a quick sample between the two. Let's get rid of that other one. That other one's kind of in the way. And if we accelerate, lots and lots of jiggle. Now, if we go in and put the rigidification simple, we hear a bit of a crash. That's concerning, if you didn't quite know. Let's bring the beams up to a broken only. No, nothing in here. Nothing is actually broken. Well, let's have a quick look and see at how much more rigid it is. Oh goodness, it is already a lot more rigid, and around it goes. Wow, instantly. I mean, it does create a crashing sound, but look at that. It's so much more rigid. Wow. It's like the video's done right now. That's amazing. Holy cow. I just wish it didn't crash, and oh, I know why. Or do I? Wait, no? Huh. Ah, yes, okay. This is the values we want to change. Let's start by making everything a little bit easier to see. And now we can see that the spring value is set to, what's that? 800,000. If we have a look at the normal J-beam, the spring values are set to, oh, a very different number. That's 1.3 million, basically. And sticking it in here and seeing if having an evened out value will help. Quick refresh and... no. Wait. Oh, I could see what's happened here. Some sort of node has moved. What? Let's pause, refresh, and it seems that this node wants to move over to here. 19? Oh. 19. That's meant to be 9. Now if we refresh... perfect. Let's see if that's actually affected our rigidification here. So give a bit of a try, slow the game down first, build up those revs, and let's see the flex. You know, not too bad. The rear is flexing a little bit, but the front is doing quite well. And this is also going to help our suspension keep its normal geometry that I would like to keep. Let's brake really hard right now. And this is where we get a lot of flex. And the rear is flexing a little bit, but nowhere near as much as what it did. The front suspension is still flexing as well. That's unfortunate. Let's bring back, have a bit of a look, just to see how much that rear is still flexing. At the moment, it's looking okay. And then braking. Yeah, that rear, it still does judder a little bit, but it judders nowhere near as much as what it used to. I'd love to do a side-by-side comparison, but I'm not a good enough driver. I might have to call somebody up and see whether they're willing to do a before and after comparison for their times for me, because at the moment, this is already looking a lot better. Okay, alrighty. Now, let's do the other thing I was saying. For a good before and after comparison, I'm going to bring the front nose down for this. That's A29 and 30 are going to get the same values as... what was it again? I think 10 had it. Put that there, come here, hit Control R, and are they going to move for me? Yes, they are. Good. Now, if we wanted to, we could attach those into the rails as well, and because they're much longer, that's going to really help us out. Come back in, and this will go back down into alignment. Perfect. Now, we can move this around a little bit, then duplicate it, and change this to rigidification 2. This one will be called modified. And then these are going to get added into these rail sections. So 22 is also going to include 26. And then on the other end of left, we have a 6 to add as well. Then we do the same here. This is going to get added 25. On the end here, we're going to duplicate this, and this also gets 5. And put in rigidification modified. Slow the game down so we can see as much jiggle as possible. And I want to see if the rear jiggles even less now. A little bit, but not hugely. Let's see what happens when we go to brake, though. We'll get it up to about 100-ish kilometers an hour after, you know, the wheels stop spinning at the rear here, because at the moment, they're just spinning up a storm. Okay, and then brake really hard, and this is where we would get most of our bounce. And yes, it does bounce a little bit still, but you know, this is actually doing pretty darn good compared to what it was. I think what this needs is a torsion beam, but I'm not sure if I know properly how to use torsion beams yet. Because if we have a look here, we got these things called torsion beams, or torsion bars. Basically, they work like sway bars. They create almost a square, and they stop things from twisting. How would I do that here? I'm gonna be honest, not entirely sure. Maybe if I moved 1 and 2 backwards a bit. The normal version goes back to 1.9, but this only goes to 1.6, so we'll change that. Refresh it, and it should be much further back now. Good. It's hurting our ground clearance. This is not going to be an off-road vehicle anymore. And I'm not seeing nearly as much bouncing. Speed it up a little bit, and then... yeah, we're still getting jiggle under braking, but you know it is severely reduced. Next thing is we're going to do the sides. We're not going to go all the way to the front, because the front always never really lines up. So let's get all of these to be at the same height. Grab the lowest points, add that to 16, 12 into 8. Then we're going to do some duplication here. This is going to be LL to signify that it's wider, and R to signify that it's wider. Then after adding all of that back in, let's do a quick refresh. Oh, have I stuffed some things up? Yep, okay. 23, 19, what have I done? 23, 19, 15 are attached to LL, and LL is 26 to, oh, yeah, it's meant to be 27. Yeah, little simple mistakes are very easy to make. When this refreshes, it should make no sound. Perfect. Nothing is even under stress at the moment. Let's bring up the triangles, and let's see if that has reduced our our springiness even more. So, where we go? Yeah, it's looking fairly good. Let's slow it down, jam on the brakes, and you know, it feels like it has made it a little bit more rigid. The wheels, though, are still moving more than what I would like, but that's more of a rigidification to do with the suspension, and I can't really fix that. So, how am I going to make this mod available to everybody? Well, we have a bit of a trick. This is called a normal Camso mod, and this is a common thing. Luckily, I think the automation devs there worked with the BeamNG devs, allowing it to always be, if you have a common folder as an automation thing, slot creation, whatever in it, it should go to all automation vehicles. Oh wait, does it go the other way? No, wait, I got it. All automation has to do is create a Camso mod. Then if you create a mod which says this can go into any automation vehicle through a common folder, it'll find Camso mod and it'll be there. So let's go back to our unpacked, create a new folder. This is going to be Camso rigidification, whatever. Vehicles, then common, then move that over so it's no longer in here, and the rigidification seems to be still in there. Perfect. Now, if I spawn, say, another automation vehicle, like this indescript little beauty that I've started putting together, we can see that we still have the rigidification allowed in here. Perfect. Now all I have to do is find somebody that's good at driving. I'm thinking maybe Cesare?
This is the first version of Philman's Ragamuffin 500. Let's see how it does around the Charlotte Roval. Kind of a bumpy ride, a bit inconsistent sometimes. We are now using the car with rigidification and seeing how it compares. that's so much better. That was very different from how it behaved last time. With rigidification, this is a very predictable and fun race car. It did change the weight shifting dynamics just a little bit though, so it would need more forward biased brakes and maybe some toe and sway bar adjustments.
I really gotta say, Cesari is an absolute beast in BeamNG with any sort of controller that he uses. But now for my final thoughts. For one, I really do like this car a lot, and I'm glad now that I'm able to make it to a point where it's kind of like really good to drive, even by Cesari standards, who is a little bit of a stickler for having a good tune on the vehicle. Now, I'm trying to drive this in a weird camera position because I want it to look cinematic. Because it also is a pretty car to drive, but I don't think that's working. I'm gonna go for the normal position here. But yeah, this is pretty great. I even put in a moving steering wheel so then they could get a little bit of a better drive out of there. And hit me up, Infinity. If you want to put this into the exporter by default, by all means, go for it, bro. But as it stands, this mod will be available. It is already available by the time that I'm recording this. I've already put it up on my Patreon. If you guys want early access to mods, you can go there, and the moment that they're in like a shareable state, they immediately go up there, and then you guys that normally don't pay for the Patreon, which is fine, will have to wait until the video comes out, then it gets approved on the BeamNG repository. I'll never paywall any of my mods completely. It's just you get early access for those of you who want to say thank you and also have a little bit of an impatience issue. Do you know what's also pretty impatient? Me, when it comes to thanking my channel members. You guys are freaking awesome. Guys are already supporting me, especially that includes the Rogue Tick, the Crown Priest, who is a top tier channel member, just throwing their money away completely. For the rest of you though, I'll catch you all next time. Goodbye.